Do another one of these today. I've already done two, but I really think this one will be faster. So this is the word counter with JavaScript, and let's create a new file in Caret. Let's call this, let's save this as wordcounter.html. Okay, and the first step says copy in the HTML elements, just like before. Alright, paste, save, awesome. Let's test it out, see what it already looks like. Command O for open, there it is. And it looks like we've got a text area, that's that right there. And then we've got the button to count the words of the text, and that is that there. And then we've got a place that's going to display the result, which is the number of words there are in the text area, and that's this element here, the div element. Okay. So what is the second step? It says add some rows and column attributes. Row and column attributes inside the text area element's opening tag. So what that means is right here we've got an opening text area element tag and a closing tag. So yeah, it says right after the word text area we'll put these two attributes in here. A rows number and a calls. Calls of course is short for columns. So if I save that and refresh, you can see it defaults to a bigger text area size. I could make this be even more columns. I could make it be like 100. Save that, refresh. Now it stretches even further. Okay. Step 3. It says to add the ID attributes, and we should be familiar with this by now. In order to access the input, we need to have an ID for the text area. That is, in order to access it through JavaScript. Let's also add an onClick event for the button. So I'm going to just paste that in there. Save it. And there's no point in testing it right now because the things that we just added won't change the behavior yet. Alright, step 5 says we need to add some script. Add some JavaScript with a function called countWords because, of course, the onClick event is going to try to run that script. So let's add that script tag with that function in it. Let's just put it right there. And I'm going to indent this. Perfect. And it still isn't going to do anything because there's no scripts. There's no commands inside of our function countWords there. And then step 6 says, in that function, we need to get the text input from the text area. Well, good thing we gave it an ID. It makes it really easy to access that text area and then retrieve its value, store its value in a new variable called text. That's what I'm doing there. Okay. And now we create a variable to keep track of how many words there are as it counts them one by one. So I'm just going to say var numWords equals 0. And then in that same script, inside these brackets, just keep adding the code here. It says set up a repeating process. And this is going to go over each value in the text. And we're trying to count how many words there are. So by looking at each value, what that means is we're actually looking at each character. So how can we, by looking at the number of characters, or by looking at each individual character of the text, how can we tell how many words there are? One trick we can use, or at least to give us a good estimate for how many words there are, is we can count how many spaces there are, and then add one to that, because if there are 2 spaces, it probably means those are the gaps between the 3 words. Anyway, okay, so let's do that. So we're going through using a variable I, starting at the first position of the characters, and then it goes while it's less than the final position of the characters, and it increases each time by 1. And it accesses the current character. So we're going to be looking at each character individually. It accesses it using the index I. That's the variable we're using to iterate. Okay, so step 9 says, still inside of that loop, we need to check if that current character is a space, and if so, we need to add 1 to our counter, which is numWords. So the numWords variable increases as we find characters that are just the space character. Okay, so it goes through 1 by 1 by 1 by 1. Okay, and every time it finds a space, it increases that by 1. All right. Step 10 says, after the loop is complete, we want the app to display the result. And that's why we have a div here. But did I forget to put an ID on that? Yes, I did. Whoops. It was up here in step 3. I was supposed to copy this ID numWords output and put that inside of the div's opening tag. There we go. Okay. Now we're back to step 10. After the loop is complete, we want the app to display the result. Place this line after the loop. So let's just copy all that. And the loop ends right here. Paste. Perfect. And if we make this bigger, you'll see that it's not actually multiple lines. It was just wrapping because it ran out of space. All right. And then step 11 says to add some CSS. I guess we could test it. It looks like we're all done. Let's save that, refresh, and let's try it out. I'll say, hi, this will count the number of words. I say count words, and it counts the number of spaces, right? So let's see, how many words are there actually? Hi, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are actually 8 words here. It tells me there are 7 because, of course, it's just counting the spaces. There are only 7 gaps between 8 words. That's how it works. So one thing you could do is just say however many spaces there are, add 1 to that result. So let's say at the very end, numWords plus equals 1. So that's after the loop is complete. It'll add 1 more. Now let's try it. So there are 5 words here. Let's test that. Yeah, it worked. Good. Okay, so step 11 said to add some cool CSS. I guess we could do that real quick. Style, and then add a body element or a body CSS, whatever. Just say font size 24. Font family, Arial, that's the type, the font type. Let's check that out. Yeah, that's cool. Awesome. Now let's see. Step 12. When you test this, you'll notice the count may be, oh, we already did that. Yeah, I told you. We can add 1 to the total because it's going to be off by 1. Step 13 says there's actually a shorter way we could have done this. JavaScript has a special function that lets you split based on a character. So for instance, in this case, if we wanted to split the pieces of this text every time we see a space, that will arrange it all into a list, and then we can just ask how many things are in that list. So this one line here actually could do the whole thing instead of this. Instead of all of that loop that's repeating stuff, I could have just said this. And then save it and try it again. Let's try. There are 5 words here. It still works. Yeah. So there you have it. But I wanted to show you how a for loop works. I wanted to show you that we could step through each character. All right, so feel free to turn in that HTML file.